Welcome everyone gathered here in person and for those gathered online at choftribute.com as well as all the other websites. I would like to first give a shout out to Mrs. Sofer of COL Live for promoting and making such a beautiful awareness campaign for this event and for everything that she does for our community. We are gathered for an evening of tribute honoring the Rebbe's father tonight on his 75th yahrzeit in accordance with the Rebbe's personal request. I would like to thank a few individuals who helped make this beautiful event possible. Firstly, thank you Rabbi Moshe Kotlarsky, Vice Chairman of Merkaz Linyani Chinuch, for being the first to encourage and support this initiative. May the Eibishter bench you to continue all the holy work you do for shluchim around the world, around the clock, and around the year. Thank you, Zalman and Mrs. Felig of Miami, Florida. Sorry you weren't able to be here tonight. I know you're watching live. Mazel tov for your grandson. And a special happy Chof birthday to Mrs. Felig, wishing you a year filled with blessings and all your heart's desires should be fulfilled for the good. Thank you, Yerachmiel and Rivka Leah Jacobson. Yerachmiel is a supporter of this community and many meisters, and we all know of the great work that he does. Thank you, Yerachmiel. Thank you to two dear friends, Mr. Shlomi and Mrs. Greenwald, and Zalmi and Mrs. Cohen. I know Cohen's a typical name, so I guess Zalmi and Sarla Cohen. Thank you for your continuous support and encouragement. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Rabbi Yossi and Mrs. Shani Friedman of Rabbi Yossi from Kahas Publication Society, the Kahas Publications, for all your time, talent, and input, and especially late nights. Thank you. Thank you, Beryl Majeski of the Crown Heights Friendship Circle, for all the planning and coordination of tonight's event. You definitely crossed the T's and dot the I's. I just hope that this is the first of many more such events here for Crown Heights community, as well as for Shluchim and Anash around the world. Without further ado, please give it up for Rabbi Shais Taub for the feature presentation.
Okay. Adjusting the mic. Great. Menachem, you forgot a thank you. You forgot something. The Hayom from Daled Tammuz says that Chassid Echad, a Talmud Echad, Kasher Neisen Libe Nafshe V'Daite, Al Teira V'Chizuka, that one person, one Chassid, who decides to care and pay attention to Torah and strengthening Torah, can be Poel Yeshuos in an Ir Gedaila. And in this case, the night, this beautiful event that we're all attending right now, is because one Bacher decided, basically since Gimel Tammuz, to give over sleepless nights and tireless days for the past 6 weeks. So I think we all owe a debt of gratitude to Menachem Benchemon. Everyone said it should have been done, but you're the one who did it. That's good. We can do. So before we begin the main part of the presentation, lilmoid, to study. There are two orders of business. Holy business, but business nonetheless, and that's why I want to take care of it right up front. First order of business is the Rebbe's request was lilmoid ulenadev, to study Torah in honor of his father, and also to make contributions, to give tzedakah. You may visit Chof of tribute.com. If you're watching online right now, you're on chofoftribute.com. And we've made it easy for you. You can contribute there to the Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Fund in accordance with the Rebbe's request. If you're here live, you could also donate, but do it after the presentation. And in fact, this reminds me to let everyone know it'll be a good idea to silence, or even better, turn off your cell phones. Second order of business. Oid v'hu ha'ikar. We know that the Rebbe asked many times that we not only come to him with our struggles, but we come to him with nachas reports, with good news. So Baruch Hashem, we have good news. We have Yidden coming together to learn Torah, the Rebbe's father's Torah, on the yahrzeit. That's very good news. So on chofoftribute.com, you may enter your name and your mother's name. Everyone who has attended here can do so after the event, and anyone who's watching online can do so now or after. And that way, tomorrow, Amir Tzah Hashem, we'll be taking all of the names of all of the participants here and all around the world who participated in tonight, and we're going to be bringing all of their names to the oil and bring good news to the Rebbe. Amir Tzah Hashem, we should continue to have good news, all of us, to report. Okay. Lilmud miteirasei. I'm going to make a confession right now that I'm not 100% comfortable standing up here right now. And I'll tell you why. The Rebbe's father was a Rav in the town of Yekaterinoslav. And the Rebbe's father, as a Rav, would give shiurim. Once the Rebbe's father was giving a shiur, and in his style of Kabbalah, of connections, making rapid and quick associations, one topic to the next topic, level after level, going deeper and deeper, he lost the crowd. He lost the crowd. Until finally somebody, I guess, had the chutzpah to say, Rebbe, wer versteht? Who can understand this? And the Rebbe's father pointed to the back of the crowd, the back of the room, and there was a boy standing there quietly, unassumingly, not drawing any attention. And the Rebbe's father said, Der Yingel, versteht. This boy, he understands what I'm saying. Who was the Rebbe's father pointing to? The Rebbe. So basically, we're talking about Torah from such a teacher who says, don't worry, there's one person who understands. The Rebbe understands. And now we're supposed to understand. To tell stories, to draw inspiration, that's one thing. But to really actually, and Menachem insisted on this. He said, the Rebbe said, lilmoid, the Rebbe said, learn. So we're going to learn. We have study companions. There's a reason for that. The style of the Rebbe's father's teachings draw deeply upon Kabbalah, especially on making connections between the letters and the words and the numerical values. And without some type of visual aid, it's hard to keep track, the halt cup. So we have the visual aids here in this companion. So I'm going to attempt to convey some of the teachings of the Rebbe's father in a way that is faithful to the depth of those teachings, but also in a way that hopefully you and I can actually understand something. And also, understanding includes uvachein ma'aseh b'poel, how it applies in our day and age to our lives. Okay, hope it works. Enkevedeh came for the Rebbe's father. They came to make their search. 3 a.m, Tess Nisan, mamish days before Pesach, Tafresh Tzadik Tes. We're talking about 1939. Spring of 39. You're talking about a few months before the Germans invaded Poland, so World War II hadn't sparked off yet. In the USSR, you have the height of Stalinist persecution of religion, specifically of Judaism. And of course, by the time that the secret police come in and they search the place, they already have the case. In fact, they already have the verdict. It's a foregone conclusion. So after the 3 a.m. interrogation, they leave the house, and the Rebbe's father knows it's a matter of hours, minutes, before they come back and arrest him. Word traveled fast, and the first mispalalim who came to the Rebbe's father's shul for Shachris started to hear, one from the other, that there were visitors in the Rav's home in the middle of the night. They all came running to the apartment where the Rebbe's parents lived. At this point, it wasn't even the original apartment. They'd been displaced. Their apartment was confiscated once, I think even twice, given away to others, and they were put in small quarters. So at dawn, the Rebbe's father's congregation come to his home, and they ask, what's going to be? What's going to be? And the Rebbe's father says like this. The Gemara in Brochas, Daf Lamed Aleph, Omed Aleph says, Lo yepoter adam mechaveroi ela metoich dvar halacha. That one person should not take leave from his fellow except in the midst of a Torah teaching. Now, I don't know that this is what the Rebbe's father said, but I want to just add one thing. The Rebbe would reference this Gemara often as well. When the Rebbe would say sichas, especially to the visitors, the guests who came to Crown Heights to spend Yom Tif with the Rebbe would say this Gemara and he would explain, La yapater adam mechaveroi. A person never really truly parts from his fellow, Ella, but rather, mitoich dvar halacha, they remain united in a bond as long as they share the same Torah thought. So wherever they may be, geographically, physically, if their mind is on the same Torah thought, then they're really together. So the Rebbe's father says to his congregants, I'm going to leave you with a message. He doesn't know if he's going to ever see them again. The fact of the matter is, he didn't. The Rebbe's father says, here's the message of the entire Torah. Torah begins with a base. Oh. Study companion. Torah begins with a base. Bereishis bara Elokim. And Torah ends with a lamed. Le'enei kol Yisrael. So from start to finish, Torah is base, lamed. And because you didn't end Torah and begin it again right away, it's lamed base. It's both. Base lamed, lamed base. Now what's lamed base? We all know lamed base. Yeah, it's okay, you can guess. The heart, right? The heart. And in this case, the Rebbe's father is talking about the heart, the courage, the conviction to remain strong no matter what's going to happen. So he says like this, you want to have lave, you want to have the heart, the courage, you need Baal. Lave, Baal. What's Baal? Baal means don't. Like on Pesach, you have Baal Yirah, Baal Yamatzeh. You're not allowed to have chametz be seen or found. So Baal means don't. But Baal is just one word. Don't. Don't what? Don't what? It's not a complete sentence. So here's one thing I want to point out. The style of the Rebbe's father. In fact, tonight's presentation has a name. We called it More Than Meets the Eye. Because the style of the Rebbe's father's Torah, which also we can say is the style of the Rebbe's Torah, maybe let me make a parenthetical statement which may lead to another parenthetical statement, and I'll go back to Baal and Lev. The Rebbe once spoke on Chof Cheshvan, on Chof Av, on his father's yahrzeit, about a Gemara in Yevomis where it says that Rabbi Yochanan was upset that one of his Talmidim was saying Chidushim that Rabbi Yochanan taught this Talmud, and he wasn't saying that he heard it in Rabbi Yochanan's name. So, and why was he upset? I mean, there's different maforshim. Some say because Rabbi Yechanan had no sons who lived. So to him, his whole legacy was having Talmidim. So he was upset that the student had quoted him but not said the name. And the other Amoraim were trying to comfort him, and he wouldn't be comforted. Until finally somebody told Rabbi Yochanan, and they said, listen, when Yeshua used to teach the Jewish people, do you think before every teaching of Moshe Rabbeinu he would say, this is what I heard from Moshe Rabbeinu? If he would have done that, then every sentence would have begun, this is what I heard from Moshe Rabbeinu. It was understood that if Yeshua said it, he heard it from Moshe. He didn't have to say it. It was understood. And this comforted Rabbi Yochanan. So the Rebbe said, the same thing can be applied. If I'm saying it, I learned it from my father. What's the Rebbe's father's approach, and what's the Rebbe's approach? I mean, if we can speak about such matters. Maybe I'll try to relate it on a personal level. I get a lot of feedback. Baruch Hashem, I have this column that I write, this, I don't know what that advice column, questions and answers, which is, Baruch Hashem, very successful outside of Chabad. Because the Lubavitchers all know my secret. But I try to tell them, when I speak to the Litvischer, the Chassidischer, I tell them, I say, listen, you're so nespoiled, there's a secret to this, and it's an open secret. What I'm writing is a very, very, very poor imitation of Igros Kodesh. Go get the real thing. But they're so nespoiled, they say, it's amazing what you do. You turn the question into the answer. I made that up. I figured that out, right? Okay. That's the Rebbe's derech halimud, that confusion becomes clarity. The question itself has the answer, you just have to know how to take it apart. So more than meets the eye is the derech halimud, is the approach to learning, that you want the answer, just look deeper. The answer's there. The answer's right there. Just look deeper. Okay, so let's go back to what we were talking about. Lev and Baal. Baal means don't. Don't what? I don't know what I don't know what you're telling me not to do. So what do you got to do? Look at the word Baal more deeply. If you take the word Baal, you look at it, you have base and lamed. Now, if you shift the letters of Baal one earlier in Aleph base, so base becomes Aleph, and lamed becomes Chof. And you have Aleph, Chof, which is the word Ach. Okay. Or you take the word Baal and you shift it the other way, so base becomes the next letter, Gimel. Lamed becomes the next letter, which is Mem. Gimel, Mem is the word Gam. So says the Rebbe's father, speaking to his congregation, moments before he's coming to be arrested. You want to keep the whole Torah with your whole heart? Stick with Baal. Chazal say that Ach, every incidence of the word Ach in Torah is a ribui. It comes to add. I mean, rather a miot. It comes to just subtract. Verkehrt. Gam is a ribui. It comes to add. These are code words in Torah. In Torah Shabbal Peh. Ach comes to take away something from a list. Gam comes to add something to a list. So the Rebbe's father says like this. Le'seisif v'le'sigra. Don't add. Don't subtract, don't budge 1 inch. Don't turn it to Ach and take away. Don't turn it to Gam and add what the Eibishter didn't ask for. Stick with Baal, and if you don't budge 1 inch, then you'll have Lev, you'll have the heart, you'll have the courage to keep the whole Torah. Okay. Al derech zeh, along the same lines, there's another Torah from the Rebbe's father. And we don't have it from the Rebbe's father's writings, and I just want to explain, how do we have the writings of Likutei Levi Yitzchak and Teres Levi Yitzchak? Those writings, the Rebbe's father was writing prolifically for years. We estimate that he wrote thousands of pages, and those ksavim were lost when the Rebbe's father was sent into Golus. And they have not resurfaced, although the Rebbe made certain statements that implied that in Eretz Hashem one day they will be located. What we have, all we have, are the notes that the Rebbe's father wrote into the Sforim, the few Sforim that Rebbe Tzimchana was able to bring him when she joined him in Golus, the notes that he wrote with ink that was made from the leaves that Rebbe Tzimchana gathered. And also what we have are letters that the Rebbe's father wrote to the Rebbe. So the Rebbe had those and kept those, and that's how they made their way to America. So this following Torah I'm going to tell you, we don't have it from the writings of the Rebbe's father, but the Rebbe mentioned it at a Fabrengen. And in fact, in the Rishimus, the Rebbe mentions in notes to a Fabrengen that the Rebbe led in Riga, 1931, the Rebbe also writes this same Torah, and it's about Sukkah. A vort about Sukkah. What's the vort? Look here. There's a pasuk. It's from Yeshayahu, Perek Daled, pasuk Vav. V'sukkah tiyeh, l'machse lo mister mezerem mimotar. It shall be a sukkah, a canopy of protection for you, to shield from the zerem and matar, from the storm and the rain. Okay, what's the sukkah? What's the storm? What's the rain? So the Rebbe says in the name of his father like this. The main occupation of a person, of a Jewish person in this world, are 248 positive mitzvahs. Yes, there's 613 in total, but 365 are the don't do's. So 248 are the do's. So the main occupation of a Jew in this world is symbolized by the number 248. 248 is Ramach, right? 248 positive commandments, 248 limbs of the body, because every limb was given to do another mitzvah, so on and so forth. Okay. Now, if you learn Torah and you believe in your own intellect and you think that Torah is a discipline just like any other, academic subject, so if you understand that you should add something, you'll add. If you understand you should subtract something, you'll subtract. And you won't do ramach, you'll stray. But if you remember that Torah is literally a sukkah, what's a sukkah? It's over your head, right? As much as Torah is an intellectual pursuit, and we put it in our heads, but it remains infinitely transcendent, makif, above our heads. So when you have the humility, you remember that Torah always remembers above your head like a sukkah, that will shield you from zerem, Gematria 247, one less than Ramach 248, and from matar, Gematria 249, one more than Ramach than 248. Again, similar concept. All right, I'll tell you one more on this theme. And I don't want to imply that, by the way, this is necessarily a major theme in the Rebbe's father's Torah. There are many, 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 many themes. This is one that I connected with and that I found and I wanted to share with you. Flip the page over. Or if you have it open already, just look on the left side of the page. Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov and Esav are twin brothers. We know in Chassidus that means Nefesh Elokis and the Nefesh Bahamis. Nefesh Elokis knows that there's only one power in life, Hashem Echad. Nefesh Bahamis, the materialist, he's afraid of people, places, and things. He thinks that people can hurt him. The people can take from him something that Hashem wants to give him, and people can give him something Hashem didn't want him to have. In order to subvert the pure belief in Hashem Echad, what does Esav need? He needs something for his plan. And it's all hinted to in this pasuk from Malachi, from the Navi. Haloi ach Esav leYankiv. You see the pasuk? Haloi ach Esav leYankiv. Is Esav not a brother to Yankiv? Says the Rebbe's father, Haloi oisius Leah. Haloi, hey, Lamed Aleph, is Lamed Aleph, hey. Same letters, just, like if you play Scrabble. Leah, what's Leah? We know that Rivka had an older son and a younger son. Lavan had an older daughter and a younger daughter, and everyone was making shidduchim, right? So Leah grew up crying because she didn't want to be in the lot of Esav Arasha. Esav, for his part, he was very happy about that because he needs Leah in order to destroy the emunah of a Jew, to make a Jew a materialist and to be afraid of people, places, and things. Why is Leah instrumental to that plan? Follow. Leah, what's Leah? So one of the things we do Kabbalistically, when we find the real hidden value of a word, is gematria. But then there's the deeper level of gematria, not just the number of the totality of the letters, but something called the miloi. The miloi is when you spell out every letter of the word and take the gematria of the whole letter spelled out as if it were a word. Like Leah is Lamed Aleph Hey. But if you spell it out, so Lamed, how do you spell Lamed? Lamed, Mem, Daled, right? And Aleph is Aleph, Lamed, Langef Hey, right? And Hey is Hey, Yud. Okay. So what is the gematria of the milui of Leah? So Lamed is 74. Aleph is 111. Hey is 15. 74 plus 111 plus 15 equals 200. What one letter in Aleph base is 200? Resh. So the milui of Leah is 200, which is Resh. Who is Esav in the pasuk? He's called Ach. Ach wants Leah, who is Resh. If the Ach gets the Resh, that's Acher, that's otherness. The belief in powers other than Hashem. And where is he going to put that otherness, that Acher? Smack dab in the middle of your Amunah in Hashem Echad. He's going to turn Echad into Acher. Holy smokes, how's he going to do it? Okay, follow this. How do you turn a Daled into a Resh? So if you do it numerically, right, and remember, if Esav can turn a Daled into Resh, he turns your Amunah of Hashem Echad into the false belief in Kel Acher. So Daled is how much? 4. Resh is how much? 200. How much numerically do you have to add to Daled to get up to 200? To add to 4, which is Daled, to get to 200, which is Resh. How many are missing numerically? 196. 196 is a word. Koitz. Kuf vav tzadik is 196. It means, you know what it means? A thorn. Watch what Esav does. He adds 196 to the Daled, 4, and it becomes 200 Resh. But visually, at the very same time he's adding kites, 196, visually look at the difference between how a Daled looks and how a Resh looks. Look at the difference. The Daled has a little kites, a little thorn on the back, and the Resh doesn't. So follow this, a little bit confusing, but he added 196 kites to Daled to make it a Resh, but he actually detracted the kites, the thorn, turned Daled into a Resh, and turned Hashem Echad into Kel Acher Chas v'Sholom. And what does this teach us again? Kol ha'moisif gereya. When you add where it's inappropriate, you end up taking away. Okay, so I said that we're going to try to not just understand it on an intellectual level. We're going to try to apply it. Kol ha'meisif gereya. Or as the pasuk says, le'seisif v'le'sigra. Don't add and don't subtract. Now, obviously, we know not to subtract because you're not allowed to do avedas, right? Like, what part of thou shalt not did you not understand? Right? So what does that mean? So the Kli Yakar says, it's one sentence. Le'seisif v'le'sigra. Don't add in order that you don't subtract. That by adding, like we saw with that kites, you end up losing. The Dubna Maggid has a mashal for this. The Rebbe said once that Dubna Maggid didn't learn Chassidus, but his mashalim can be used to understand Chassidus. There was one time a guy asked his neighbor to borrow his silverware. So after he returned the silverware, there were extra pieces. So the guy says, you gave me extra, you gave me from yours. He said, no, they're not mine, they're yours. When the spoons were by me, they got pregnant and they had babies. So the spoons gave birth, these are the babies they had. So enjoy. So the guy's thinking, my neighbor's a lunatic, but good, the error worked in my favor, so leave it alone. So the next day, the guy comes over and he says, listen, I'm having a party at my house, could I borrow your chandelier? The guy's thinking, oh, yeah, you could borrow my chandelier, because what is he thinking? He's going to return it with babies, right? A day comes by, 2 days, 3 days, the guy's not returning the chandelier. Finally he comes over, knocks on the door, says, where's my chandelier? He says, I regret to inform you that while your chandelier was with me, it died. There's no more chandelier, it died. So he says, chandeliers can't die. He says, listen, if spoons can have babies, chandeliers can die. Right? So, loiseisif v'le'sigra means when you start adding to Torah, in other words, when you try to be frumer than Hashem, you'll end up taking away. Now, we know that Rebbe's father was the ultimate, fearless, courageous champion of not budging an inch from detracting one iota from Torah. You want to talk about the Rebbe's father's frumkeit? I mean, we know the story. The Rebbe told the story about the wheat, the Pesach wheat that they wanted hashgacha on. Okay, and you have to understand the setting. There was a famine at that time. The Ukraine is called the breadbasket of the Soviet Union, or it was, just like Kansas is to America, so the Ukraine was. And there was a famine because the Soviet Union was taking all the grain from the Ukraine. They were sending it around the Soviet Union. They were even exporting. So there was a famine. Okay, you're talking about flour was at a premium, and when the train car went under the bridge and there was dripping water from the top of the tunnel, the Rebbe's father said that the whole car is no good. And you have to understand the courage. You know, you talk about a mashgiach. Today in a restaurant, they tell me, Hafsid Muru, but right, Hafsid Muru, you're talking about the government is watching you. You're gonna disqualify a whole train car of wheat in a time of famine, and he stuck to his guns, right? So we know that Rebbe's father's frumkeit didn't compromise. At the same time, you want to know what frumkeit is? And this is what I think really we can all learn from today. You know, I want to know what real frumkeit is. The Rebbe's father's frumkeit. In Dnepropetrovsk, in Yekaterinslav, in the Rebbe's father's shul, on Rosh Hashanah, they used to have a minyan. The Rebbe's father made and arranged a special minyan that would be finished with davening and tekiyas and everything by 8 a.m. You want to know why? Because there are people who couldn't withstand the Nisayan, and they went to work. They worked on Yom Tov. They worked on Rosh Hashanah. They worked on Yom Kippur. What did Rebbe's father do? He made a minyan for these people so that they would be able to work on time after davening, after tekiyas. Somebody would do that today. What you say? You're assisting them. You're making it all right. You're giving tacit approval. You're encouraging. You're going to make them do it more. You know what frumkeit is? Sigra. Don't add and don't subtract. You don't budge 1 inch by taking away chas v'sholem, but don't add your own frumkeit. Don't add your own rules that are going to exclude people. Always be inclusive. Always make it possible for a Jew to do a mitzvah. Be as tolerant and liberal as possible. That's frumkeit. Can you imagine that? The Rebbe's father's shul, Rosh Hashanah. This was the Avos Yisrael. This was the frumkeit that we saw. Now, I want to mention, since we're mentioning Rosh Hashanah, if you can try to picture yourself, that's why I have these guys. They help me with the picturing in a second. If you want to picture yourself, Rosh Hashanah, you're in the Rebbe's father's shul. There's all kinds, all stripes, all levels of Jews, all levels of observance, and all levels of Jews. We're coming up to Rosh Hashanah. Yeah, scary, but you know, Chof Av is 40 days before Rosh Hashanah. And just like when a baby is born, 40 days before the baby, there's announcements that are made about the future of that child. 40 days, the Rebbe spoke about it. 40 days before Rosh Hashanah, Chof Av, is already the announcement for the new year. So let's, in the spirit of the Rebbe's father's real frumkeit, not budging an inch, not to take away and also not to add, and not to be frum of Yenim's cheshbon, and to be ever inclusive, and to find a way to accommodate every Jew. We should be takeh Ashana Teva. So let's, Eli and the fellas here are going to help me to take us to Rosh Hashanah with the Rebbe's father, a Rosh Hashanah that includes all of us.
Mama, Bachodesh Ashvi Shuvo Yisroel
That was exactly what I meant to say. You got it now? That's what I meant. Okay. There's still more words on the paper, so you know I still have more stuff to tell you. Like we said, the Rebbe made it clear that his approach to life and Torah was something that he got from his father. If you'd ask people, what is the signature or the most prominent feature? Certainly what people know about far and wide, about the Rebbe's message, is Avos Yisrael, is love. And not just tolerance of another Jew, but real love. Real love. There's a vart. The Abder Rav was known as the Oiv Yisrael. So he used to say, Avos Yisrael is so important that you can find it in every single word in Torah. So somebody asked him, what about in the word Balak? Balak is an anti-Semite. In the name of a Jew hater, you're going to find Avos Yisrael? He said, of course. That one's easy. Balak is a Rosh Tevis. It's an acronym. V'yohavta l'reacha kamecha. So they told, hold on a second. V'yohavta is with a vav, not with a vase. Kamecha is with a chof, not with a kuf. So 2 out of the 3 letters are wrong. He said, exactly. When it comes to v'yohavta l'reacha kamecha, you can't be so fussy. Okay. So that's a vart, yeah. That sometimes you don't want to see the defects, you take off your glasses, you make it fuzzy, and then you don't see the mumim. That's one approach. The Rebbe's Avos Yisrael, the Avos Yisrael that we were taught, and the Avos Yisrael that is clear that the Rebbe's father had and the Rebbe's father taught to the Rebbe, is actually the opposite. It's actually the opposite. It's not, you have to overlook things. If you want to be able to love someone, you don't look so closely. Don't look. You'll see what you don't want to see. The Avos Yisrael of the Rebbe and the Rebbe's father is, if you look at a Jew and you don't see what there is to love, you're not looking close enough. You don't see what there's to love. Look more deeply. So the theme, more than meets the eye, the way the Rebbe's father looked at Torah and took every word, mamish like it says in Pikrav's, hafachba, v'hafachba, turn it over, the chaylava, that everything is in it. That really you see in the Rebbe's father's approach to Torah, taking every word and just pulling it apart again and again and deeper and more. But the same thing with how to look on a Jew. If you're looking at a Jew and you don't see what there is to love, you're not looking close enough. Look deeper. Look deeper. And if you look deep enough, you're going to find something that you can't not love. How can you not love a Jew? Any Jew. So I mentioned before that Rebbe's father used to write to the Rebbe. One of the letters, typically the Rebbe's father would write to the Rebbe, would be a birthday letter, meaning a letter for the Rebbe's birthday, Yud Aleph Nissen. The letter that the Rebbe's father wrote to the Rebbe on Yud Aleph Nissen, Tov Reish Tzadik Ches, 1938, would be the final letter, the last letter that Rebbe's father would write to the Rebbe for his birthday. Because if you remember, I mentioned the date when they came to take away the Rebbe's father was Tes Nissen, mamish 2 days before Yud Aleph Nissen So the last letter, a year minus 2 days from the arrest, was a letter all about Pesach, and specifically about Pesach as it relates to Bonim. We all know that Pesach relates to the children, the whole Seder's for the children, and the son asks. We've all heard about the fifth son. Yeah, that was something that Rebbe spoke about, the fifth son. Yeah, there are 4 sons, they're at the Seder, but at least they're engaged, they're there. Even the Ben Rosha, at least he's asking, he's challenging. But then there's a fifth son, he doesn't even know that it's Pesach, he doesn't know to be there. Go out and find the fifth son. It's very cute, sounds like, in marketing. This is Kabbalistic. This is truth. The fifth son is not a marketing phrase. The fifth son is the deepest truth. The fifth son is in the Haggadah. You don't know the fifth son is in the Haggadah? Then what do you got to do? Look deeper. Thank you. So you open up the Haggadah. What does it say? Keneged araba banim dibra Torah. Torah speaking the 4. I see 4. I'm telling you, look. Echad chacham ve'echad rasha ve'echad tam ve'echad sheni yedei Elisha. Again, I see 4. You did it again. You counted it. You counted. There's 4. Hold on. Look deeper. Before each son, what does it say? It says a word. It says echad. Echad is Aleph Ches Dalet. What's Aleph? 1. What's Ches? 8. What's Dalet? 4. 1 plus 8 plus 4 is 13. How many times does it? So Echad is 13. How many times does it say Echad? 4. 13 times 4? 52. Bigamatria. Ben. There's your fifth son. So the Rebbe's father writes to the Rebbe the last birthday wishes that he will get to write to his son. Be'emes yesh oid ben chamishi. There's a fifth son. He's right there in the Haggadah if you want to find him, if you look for him. That is the Avos Yisrael. Sometimes people ask, I think there's a misconception that Avos Yisrael, Lubavitchers have so much Avos Yisrael because we're nice people. Are we nice people? I don't know. Some of us. It's not about being a nice person. It's not an emotional thing. It's an intellectual thing. What it is, it's about the truth. The Rebbe gave us eyes to see the truth. Once you know the truth, once you know how to look at a Jew, that's it. You can never go back. But again, I want to make sure that we're taking this to heart and that we're making this really, really applicable. And so you'll forgive me for making some statements that hit home. If they touch a nerve, that's what I'm trying to do. We all know how to love a Tinnik Shenishba. We all know how to see the diamond in the rough from a Jew who never went to so much as Hebrew school. The Rebbe's father showed Avos Yisrael for Jews who strayed from the path. Maybe it shouldn't be said, but I think it's worth saying that the next door neighbor of the Schneersons in Yekaterinoslav were the Shlonskys, who were cousins. They were related to the Rebbe's family. And they were very not, at least from the outward observance, not religious. And the Rebbe's parents had their non-religious relatives in the home with their sons playing with their cousins. And there was no fear about the influence. To the contrary. And the Rebbe kept up a connection to the oldest of the brothers, Avraham. You know who Avram Shlonksy was? Anyone who knows Hebrew literature, they used to call Shlonksy Lashonsky because he was the father of modern Hebrew poetry. He was the preeminent translator of Shakespeare into modern Hebrew. Okay, he was a secular, he was a Zionist, free thinker, a maskil. He came from Chabad lineage, and this is who they interacted with. This was the inclusiveness of the Rebbe's father. And like I mentioned before about Kol HaMeisiv Gereya, You know, there was a time after the Holocaust when every yeshiva was desperate to have one more student, and every Chassidus was rebuilding, and they were desperate to have one more member. And Baruch Hashem, Yiddishkeit has flourished in the past 40, 50, 60 years, and our success, I guess, made us a little bit too picky. And now all of a sudden, we don't have room for people. Or maybe we'll have excuses, but that's only for people who don't know any better, but this guy knows, he was in the system, right? He was in the system, he should know better. You know what? Anyone who's in the system and they're still, okay. Like I said, I have to behave myself. I'll tell you a story. Ma'aser Rav. Ma'aser Rav. This is a story, speaks louder than words. Midnight, a woman, a stranger, comes to the Rebbe's parents' apartment. And she says, my daughter and my future son-in-law are high-ranking members of the Communist Party. They're both Jewish. I want them to get married with a chuppah. We'll be back in an hour. Don't ask questions. Don't ask too much information. So the Rebbe Tzimchana told the Rebbe's father, and that was it. There's going to be a chuppah. Now, technically, b'diavad, b'shas hadchak, okay, so you don't need a minyan, so you won't say Shava brachas under the chuppah. But I told you, the Rebbe's father, everything has to be done the right way. Has to be done the right way. You don't cut corners. So he went to find a minyan of people who could be trusted not to say what they saw. And they had 9. And they needed a center. They needed a 10th. What did they do? There was a guy who was called the superintendent of the building. That didn't mean that he fixed boilers. He was installed by the Communist Party for one job. He was there to monitor anti-revolutionary activity. The Hainu, what did it mean? He was there to spy on the Rebbe's father. That was his entire purpose for being there. He was a Jewish guy. The Rebbe's father goes to this guy, knocks on the door, he says, we're about to make a chuppah downstairs. We need a 10th. You're it. They make the chuppah, Shava brachas, one by one, people file out the door without drawing any attention. You know, you don't walk in groups, don't walk even in pairs. And the last 2 people to leave, they were lingering. They walked over to the Rebbe's father, they took out their cards. You know, we talk about a card-carrying member of the Communist Party. They were literally card-carrying, they had a card. They handed their cards to the Rebbe's father and said, when we're with you, these mean nothing to us. Rebbe Tzimchana writes about this in her Zichroinus, and she says, things like this happened all the time around my husband. Why did things like this happen all the time around the Rebbe's father? Imagine that. Why did Jews all of a sudden feel more Jewish? Why did Jews all of a sudden have the courage to stand up for Yiddishkeit when they were around the Rebbe's father? Why do you think? Because the Rebbe's father saw them as Jews. He asked the guy who was supposed to spy on him to be the center. I want to tell you something. Al Pi Kabbalah, it talks about why is there 11 spices in the incense in the Beis HaMikdash. One of them is chelbana, which smells bad. So the Mabit, who was a makubal from Tzfas, he says, what does it teach you? That when you have 10 other spices, like a minyan, and then you have the chelbana, which smells bad, but when you have a rasha and he's with a minyan of tzaddikim, so it mixes, his smell mixes in with it, and it makes it like it was good. That's what the Mabit says, Al Pi Kabbalah. Ma'aser Rav, what did the Rebbe's father do? He took the guy who was supposed to be the rasha, he made him the center. Kabbalah says if you have a minyan, it could even be mavatal that the rasha will be batal b'miyutai. The Rebbe's father did the exact opposite. The guy who's supposed to be the rasha, no, you're the one who's going to bring in the Shechina. So the Rebbe Tzimchana says, this is how people were reacting all the time in my husband's presence. Yeah, why do you think they reacted that way? When you look at a Jew as the most Jewish Jew, that's how they begin to feel. And that's how they begin to act. If we can take a lesson from the Rebbe's father to look deeply at other Jews, whatever their background, whether they come from another community, especially if they come from your own community, especially if they come from your own family, and see every Jew as the neshama. Because that's how the Rebbe's father taught the Rebbe to look at a Jew. Be'emes yesh oid ben chamishi. Now you're getting tired of me speaking, so we got to have a song. So I'm going to tell you something. Remember, I mentioned the Shlonksy family who lived next door. One of the siblings was the littlest of the siblings, the girl Verdina. She was musically precocious. Avram was the poet. Verdina was the musician. She played piano. As a small child, she was very talented. So she wrote an article in Ma'ariv newspaper, 1977, describing growing up next door to the Rav. And she describes the fabrengens that used to take place in the Rebbe's parents' home. And especially because she was so musical, she describes the Niggunim. And she says she remembers as a small child that Label, that's how she called the Rebbe's brother, came and took me. I was asleep. It was so late, but he took me and he brought me into the Fabrengen with the men, and I played piano as they sang. His little irreligious cousin was playing piano, and she's soaking in the kedusha of the that's Ahavas Yisrael. So Verdina, she wrote notes for two of the Niggunim she remembers. One, she said there was a happy song and a sad song. The happy song, what do you think it was? The Rebbe's father's famous Hakofos Niggun. But what she called the sad song is a Niggun, which apparently the Rebbe's father used to sing a lot at Fabrengens, which goes all the way back to the times of the Alter Rebbe. It goes something like this.
Oh
You could almost imagine you're there. We don't have a lot of time left. I know, nobody looked at their watch. You know, but the Rav who gave an exceptionally long drasha in shul one Shabbos, and afterwards the president of the shul was looking at him funny. He says, "What's wrong?" The president says, "Rabbi, the speech was just way too long." He says, "The problem is there's not a clock in the sanctuary." He says, "Yes, but there's a calendar." So we're going to try to finish while it's still Chof Av. We're talking about more than meets the eye, a deeper look, looking deeply. We spoke about looking deeply into Torah and finding the infinite depth and the meaning in every word and every letter. We spoke about looking the depth of a Jew, looking and seeing the yahrzeit of every Jew. I want to talk about one more way of looking deeply. And maybe this is the most difficult. I don't have to be the one to tell you, to inform you that it's a bitter gullus. Things happen. And each one of us, we have our challenges. We don't call them problems, we call them challenges. How do you look at your challenges? The Rebbe's father was somebody who was no stranger to real hardship. As we know, the Rebbe describes in the letter that essentially it was his father's exile that led to his passing. I mean, that's real. That's serious darkness. And yet, when the Rebbe's father wrote, and he continued writing even when he was in Golus, even when in the most difficult situations, when he wrote about his situation, he wrote about it with such clarity. What do I mean to say? You know, emunah means, I don't know how it works, but Eibishter, you're smarter than me, you're bigger than me, fine, I trust you, you win, right? That's emunah, right? More or less, right? Emunah means, I can't figure it out, but the Eibishter knows what he's doing. And sometimes when life really hurts, so you scream and you say, this makes no sense, I don't know why I'm being tortured, but somehow in the infinite wisdom of the Eibishter, this is perfect, right? It's perfect. Feels like hell, but it's perfect. That's emunah. As opposed to what? Opposed to things, you know, teva nirva nigla, when you see how it works out and you look at it, you say, no, that actually is perfect. That's good. There's a mashal that's given, talks about the Asara Haruge Malchus in the Machzor on Yom Kippur, talks about the 10 martyrs who were tortured and executed by the Romans. And at one of the intervals there, the brutality is just so out of hand. I mean, the description's there. I mean, it's in 50 days, by the way, in case you're counting. It's unreal. And then at one point, The Malachim scream out. They say, what is good? Zu Torah, this is Chara, this is Torah, and its reward. What is happening? This doesn't, even the Malachim don't understand. So a voice comes out from heaven and says, be quiet, or I'll turn the world back into nothing. This is how it works. That when I scream out in pain and say, I don't know how to deal with this horror, then the response is, be quiet, or I'll turn the world into nothing. Excuse me. I'm in pain. I'm shocked. I'm confused. I don't know what to do about it. So the mashal goes like this, that there was one time a king who had a friend who was a tailor. And the king gave the tailor a precious bolt of cloth, very expensive material, and asked the tailor to make him a suit. So the tailor makes him a suit, brings it to the king. King tries it on. He loves it. But just at that moment, picture-perfect moment, there's an advisor. The king has an advisor. He's a bad guy. Go figure. Okay. And the king's bad advisor, right? One of the tropes of Jewish stories. It didn't really happen. It's a mashal. So the advisor says to the king, he says, you're so happy. You like what the tailor did. Ask him why he steals from you. What do you mean? How did he steal? Ask him where's the rest of the cloth. He cut from the cloth. You gave him a bolt of cloth. He cut from the cloth, and then he made a suit. Ask him where's the rest of the material. So the tailor says, bring me a scissors. He takes the scissors, and he starts to cut along the seams of the king's suit. And the king recoils. He pulls back. He says, what are you doing? Why are you destroying my brand new suit? Tailor says, I was worried this would happen. Wicked advisor and all that stuff. So here's what I did. I made your suit in such a way that there is no extra cloth. The entire bolt of material is in the suit. And if I take it apart at the seams, I will lay it out in front of you, and you're going to see your original bolt of cloth just as you gave it to me. The king says, you know what? Don't take apart my suit. I trust you. So what's the nimshal? You're screaming out in pain. You're saying, how can this make sense? And Hashem says, listen, you want it to make sense? You're going to have to see the entire reality as you know it disassembled and put back into its original primordial essence. You would have to be standing there with me before the world existed, and then you would see how this moment of terror actually makes perfect sense, and no moment is wasted. There's not 1 square inch of extra cloth. So what I want to tell you is like this. And I'm going to base it on something the Frierdiker Rebbe said in Sichas, and it's printed. The Sefer Yikorim says about Hashem, Ilu yadaitiv hayisiv. If I would know him, if I would know Hashem, I would be Hashem. You can't know Hashem, because if you would know Hashem, you would be Hashem. That's what Chakira says. The Sichas of the Frierdiker Rebbe says, no, what do you think this is for? To know Hashem and be like Hashem. When you're misbeinen and you really, really can see the world from the perspective of Elokus, it's like standing there with Hashem before all of this Welt even exists. Elokus is bepshitas, Welt is bischadshis. Elokus is the real thing. You can know him and be him. So this is what I want to say. The way that Rebbe's father writes about his darkest, most troubling, most disturbing experiences, he writes about it not with the emunah of, I have no idea how this is good, but Hashem, I trust you. He writes about it with the eyes. All I can say is, the eyes of Torah are the eyes of Hashem. The Rebbe's father is looking at his life. He's looking at the brutality. He's looking at the most horrific moments. And he's saying, this makes sense, this makes sense, this adds up, this adds up. Yeah, oh, this is perfect. Yeah, Al-Pi Kabbalah. Yep, we got one. Yep. All adds up, makes perfect sense. In other words, I don't have to trust Hashem. I see it. I see it. So the Rebbe's father is writing about his own suffering, and he starts explaining. This isn't somebody who's already after the fact, who got out of the situation. He's in the situation, and he's writing about it eloquently. It all adds up. Look, David Duba from Princeton, he counted, trust me, I didn't count. He counted 23 diukim, 23 details that the Rebbe's father identified about his life, his imprisonment, and his exile that all make perfect sense according to Kabbalah. Now, I'm not going to do 23 of them, but I just want to give you a sample just to show you lahafli how mind-blowing it is that somebody is going through this and he sees it all add up. It's like he's looking at the world before it's a suit. He's looking at the suit while it's still a bolt of cloth. Okay, so first of all, the Reshima, the note that the Rebbe's father wrote, starts, Ani Levi Yitzchak ben Zelda Rachel. He explains, this whole thing is gvura. What's gvura? Discipline, divine restraint or severity, judgment. So this is all gvura. And you see the gvura in every detail. He says, first of all, my name is Levi Yitzchak. So Levi is gvura. How's Levi gvura? Because you have Kohen Levi Yisrael, which is Chesed Gvura Tiferes. So Levi is gvura. My second name is Yitzchak. So you have Avram, Yitzchak, Yankiv. That's again Chesed Gvura Tiferes. Yitzchak is gvura. So Levi is gvura, Yitzchak is gvura. Then Levi Yitzchak, weiter gvura. How is Levi Yitzchak gvura? So Levi Yitzchak is gematria neder. 254. So what's a neder? Is when you take something that was available and you make it unavailable. You make it asa. You make it off limits. That's gvura. Then he says, Levi Yitzchak ben Zelda Rachel is also gvura. How? Hashem has different shemos, the names that can't be erased. So one of those names, the name of gvura, what's Hashem's name of gvura, is Elokim. Right? Which is why Elokim is B'Gematria 86, which is Hateva, because the nature covers up godliness. That's Gvura. It hides, it conceals. Let's follow this. Elokim, how much is the regular Elokim? Regular Gematria of Elokim? 86, right? Okay. Then you do the Milui of Elokim. Remember how to do Milui? We did it with Leah. So Aleph is Aleph Lamed Fei, right? Which is 111. And then you do the Lamed Mem Dalet, which is 74. And you do all of them. You're going to have a munah? You want to trust my math, or you want me to do it right in front of you? The Milui of Elokim, you spell it all out until Mem, which is spelled Mem, which is 80, and you get, the total is 300. The Milui of Elokim, 300. Okay, we're not done. Then there's something called Ribua. What's the Ribua? It occurred to me, actually, as I was learning some of Likutei Levi Yitzchak, and he's talking about Rebua. In Israel, they have their graffiti, Nachma. That's Rebua. When you do one letter, you take a word and you do one letter more each time. So Aleph Lamed Hey, Aleph Lamed Hey Yud, Aleph Lamed Hey Yud Mem. And you do the gematria each time. So you do Aleph, 1. Then Aleph Lamed, 31, plus the 1, 32. Aleph Lamed Hey. So now you do 36 plus the Aleph and the Lam. Okay, so if you do it all, the Rebua of Elokim until you get Aleph Lamed Hey Yud Mem is 200. We're still not done. Then you count the Nekudas. You got to do the Nekudas. How do you do Nekudas? Do you ever do Gematria for Nekudas? Yeah? If you have a Jewish accountant, he knows how to do the Gematria for Nekudas. The Gematria for Nekudas are either lines or dots. So a line is a vav, 6. A dot is a yud, is 10. Okay. So what's the first nekuda in Elokim? Under the aleph, what do you have? But it's not a segel. It's a chat of segel. So it's not 3 dots. It's how many dots? 5 dots. So each dot is like a yud, meaning 10. So 5 times 10 is 50. Then you have a chelim, another 10. And then you have a chirik, one more 10. You have in total 70. Okay. So you take the regular gematria of Elokim, 86, plus the Milui, which is 300. We're up to what? 386. Plus the Rebua, which is 200. Now we're up to what? 586. Plus the Nekudas, which is 70. And what do we get? 656. 656 begematria, Levi Yitzchak ben Zelda Rachel. And the Rebbe's father doesn't just do it about his name, he does it about every detail. So he says, first of all, when did it happen? I found out the news on Hoshaina Rabbah. Hoshaina Rabbah is a day of judgment. That's why we clap the 5 Hoshainas. right? 5 are the Hegevuris, the 5 restraining powers, just like in Aleph base. They have 5 letters, which once you have those letters, Matzapach, it ends a word. So Gvura is ending, restraint. So the 5 letters, the Mem and the Nun, the Tzadik, and the Pei and the Chof, that end a word. So those are like the 5 restraining powers. So we clap the 5 Hashanahs on Hashanah Rabbah. Hashanah Rabbah is a day of din. So he says, I found out my judgment on a day of Gvura. I arrived to my Golas on Yud Tesh Shvat, which was a Monday. Well, what's Monday? The Bar Mitzvah Meir talks about the 6 days of the week of creation are the 6 middays. So if Yom Rishon is Chesed, Yom Sheni, Monday is Gvura. Okay, so I arrived on Monday, which is Gvura. And then he says, and it's also not just in time, it's also in space. Because I was in how many jails? 5 jails. What's 5? Hey, Gvuras, again, the 5. That's Gvura. And in 5 jails, 4 cities, and he even explains why they had to be. One of them was one of the cities. He was in 2 different jails. One inside the city, one outside of the city. Every single thing having to do with Kabbalah. And you read this, and you're like, if somebody would say this about my life, maybe I could finally relax, right? If somebody would finally say, look, I can't make the pain go away, but I could explain to you how I'm looking at you, and this is your life. You're not. The challenges you were sent are no mistake. They were tailor-made for you. These are exactly the challenges that your neshama came to this world for. Now, we all take that on Amunah. That Rebbe's father is looking at his life and he says it all adds up. It makes perfect sense. The Rebbe spoke about this Rishima of his father, and in classic fashion, the Rebbe's vintage style, the Rebbe says, that every detail of my father's life, accorded to Kabbalah, to Pnimiyas HaTorah, is not unique to him. Perhaps it's unique that he saw it, but really is about every single Jew. More than meets the eye means that we have to know that whatever we're going through, whatever challenges Hashem put in our life, whether they're challenges that are going on right now immediately or things that we've been dealing with for a long time, and whatever it is that we feel like we can't take it, or is it really meant for me, or maybe it's for someone else, somebody stronger. Everything makes sense. Everything is perfect. Not 1 square inch of the cloth was wasted. And because the Rebbe's father saw this, no matter what happened to him, he was always besimcha. I'll just leave you with this. We all know this story, but I want it to become more than a story for us. I want it to become, like the Rebbe said, Torah is not stories. Torah is Hero, his instruction. It's how to live your life. When the Rebbe's father was in Golus, and it came Simchas Torah, and he didn't have a shul, and he didn't have any of the normal things that a person has. He didn't even have a Torah. He had a Tanya. He got up with a Tanya in hand in a shack with a mud floor. And on Simchas Torah, he danced with joy, with real joy. And you know what tune? You guys know which tune, yeah? That Rebbe's father danced to? And Yetz Hashem, next Chof Av will be a real Chof Av with the Rebbe Fabringing, with his father and with his mother and with Mashiach and the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi. We're going to start already to dance right now.
Yeah. hey, hey, yeah, yeah, yeah. Aha!